that, and I can go into that in a second. So once created a Genesis entry, then you can take actions within the app. Usually, if it's the first time that you've installed the Holochain app, it'll ask you to like create an identity and a key pair and all those kind of things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then let's actually take a concrete example of what kind of app this could be. What would you guys like to use?
A Monopoly game.
A Monopoly game. Okay.
I was gonna say gambling, but that works too.
I was gonna go for Slack, but this is fine. Yeah, this is good. So, okay, let's take a Holochain Monopoly, a Holopoly. I just came up with that.
There you go, a Holopoly. Yeah, nice. We won't get it. We're not going to get an indie kind of copyright or patent issues here, are we?
Nope.
So let's say you make you want to start a game. And you publish some, like you want to basically invite other people, or maybe you start with a game first on your own chain. If it's just yourself playing against the computer, if you will, this might actually be difficult because Holochain is much more like a rule set that different agents or actors or people can use to interact with each other than it is sort of a run, like a run code that just goes once you do something, it just goes on and like it does the things that are specified. So I mean, there is some of that, but yeah, it's not exactly like a smart contract. And this is something that people often confuse when they first work with us. But yeah, so let's take the Holopoly example. Let's say you make your first move in the app and you've already found your collaborators. So you first enter your move on your own hash chain, and then that entry gets shared to your co-players, the people that you're playing with, through either, like in this case, it could actually be just gossiping, which is just direct node-to-node messaging. But because you probably want to keep this entry up for posterity to see, or for people to check whether like you're a good player over time, all these kind of things, you might want to have it socially available, and to also have other people be able to check whether you did everything right and whether like you're actually a good player by them going through your history. And so what you'll do is the entry that you've put on your chain, maybe you should actually add what a hash actually is for the people who are following along. People don't really get that often. A hash is basically just a digital fingerprint of a file or some kind of file. So whenever you take a file and you run it through some algorithm, it can produce a hash, a digital fingerprint. And this is what the hash chain stores, which is basically a pointer to the file.
Okay.
And that's the way that it stays lightweight as well, which is really important because we want to have these apps be as lightweight as possible and not require so much storage and computing and all that kind of stuff.
We need like the diagram for dummies.
Right, I need a visual.
We need a visual for this.
Yeah,
that might be something that you could come back with, is just something like a really simple diagram that shows a flow, but in like without the words hash.
Yeah. I can do that actually.
Yeah, it might be fun to do that, but not of course not now because we don't have much time left. But it would be fun to kind of get into it a little bit more because I think it's a really interesting topic. And you know, Yuri and I don't tend to go too technically deep, but you're certainly glossing the surface, and you're probably still losing Yuri. Dare I say?
I'll accelerate.
Probably losing me a little bit too, but it's not a bad thing because actually, it just goes to get. I mean, here's the thing: we want our listeners and our viewers to appreciate how technically complex cryptocurrency blockchain is underlying the whole thing, the infrastructure. But I wouldn't say that's any different from when we started the internet or when we went through Linux environments or other things. This is just the next generation and the next generation of code moving along. And we're getting into all these types of things about hashing an app rather than hashing a transaction. We're just talking about the next generation on the next generation of where this goes. The average user, to be fair, and this is probably right, you tell me if I'm wrong, Moritz, but the average user probably will never care about this.
No, and they don't need to. This is the great thing. They don't need to care. It's only for the people who are maybe builders, and this is why I explain it, and maybe we shouldn't go too deep into this. You're right. It's just that I'm so used to talking to builders rather than consumers that I'm always going to like the stuff that gets me excited and that gets them excited. But anyways, so
but I think the important thing is there's a lot of enthusiasm both with what you're doing, but also I think generally the enthusiasm about what we're all doing in cryptocurrency, which is revolutionizing technology, because we've been static for a long time. I mean,
Right.
we've had some level of innovation taking place, of course, and we've seen, code development like C# and .NET evolved massively, and Java has developed massively, and then we've had Python, and
Right.
they're all development languages that have expanded and made things so much easier with, code on top of code on top of code that makes libraries on top of libraries, that makes it so easy and so code-wise, it just, things have gotten so much easier. But of course, you get to the point where you say, right, we need to get to a next level of innovation, and that's what I think blockchain brings. And with that, it's a whole different kind of mindset that blows people away, because it's like Yuri and I joke about. This is the time for cryptographers. They never really had much of a chance, except for maybe during World War II. But this is really like the era of the cryptographer.
The era of the nerds, yeah. But, maybe I'll just, since we don't have much time left, let me just sort of give something, a little bit of a piece that normal people can grasp and can follow easily, I think. So I think what you're talking about is basically the evolution of the web, right? Like, you're talking about where we're going towards with all this stuff that we're doing with these apps and these computers and these servers, etc. Now, but I want to sort of help people understand why Holochain is something different and how to put it into the context of the web development actually over time. So at the beginning of the web, when Tim Berners-Lee, the genius that he was, outlined the vision for the web, he specifically talked about peer-to-peer, that you should be able to interact directly with me. And he talked about servers directly communicating. Everybody has their own server, their little data store, and then you communicate through email or whatever other protocols, right? And that was the vision. But what happened was that servers are too difficult, too expensive, too costly, too annoying, too frustrating to operate for the end user. It's just not worth it. Why should I need to learn to code to be part of the internet if the internet is easy to use?
Yeah.
And so what happened was, because it was so far too easy and not the default to have your data live on your own device, we got away from that. And so the corporations that developed the internet further, and pretty much we have to thank porn for that, they figured out, okay, what we do is we put all the data in one place, these massive server farms, and then what you do is you come to us and you do your little thing in our server farms, and then when you're done, you go out again. But everything happens on our turf, right? And so you have this shift of peer-to-peer, the most intelligent, the most capable people communicating through the internet over research and science and all that stuff, to consumer adoption. And because it was so hard to use on the like really basic level, normal people just started using the services that were offered to them by other people. And so Holochain presents a step sort of back to that original peer-to-peer vision of the web, because it makes you owning your data the default. Okay. You don't actually have to tick a checkbox or learn to code. It just is that way.
Right. Fascinating, isn't it? This is really evolving, and this is really cool to see. I mean, I think what'll be really interesting, other than a visual explanation of this, would be an actual example of an app that's doing some of this stuff, so we can start to see examples of this. And of course, no pressure, because we don't know when you'll have that, but of course.
Look, there are 60 apps out there that are functional to some degree, so it's not a problem of showing apps. It's just, what we're not yet at is production readiness, like where we can guarantee security and where we can guarantee that it'll be as fast as we think it is.
Right. Well, this is exciting. Well, Moritz, thank you very much for bringing this technical depth to the show. It's kind of like, let's see how much we can confuse Steve and Yuri in 20 minutes or less. Objective achieved.
I'll be sure to make up for it next time.
No, it's okay. No, go ahead.
I plan on going back and watching this again, because there's so much knowledge that you dropped in a short period of time, and I have to just but this is great. I learned a lot.
Yeah. I think the key to this is there's a lot of things to learn, and as much as we've done to try to help educate people within our own show, and for those of you listening and watching, of course, we encourage you to keep doing research and keep learning, because there's just layers and layers and layers of more to know in crypto, which is what's exciting. And at the same time, you don't need to get into that much detail, so don't worry.
Right.
There's plenty of things that run and operate like your operating system on your PC or your Mac, and Windows and Word and other things that all have tons of code behind it, and you don't have to see it. So if you're not interested,
I have no clue how a plane is flying, actually.
What's that?
I have no clue how a plane flies, and yet I still travel.
So, yeah, exactly right. So we don't have to know how it works to use it, but it's still interesting to know more about what's happening. And this has been really, really interesting. So thank you, Moritz. This is Moritz Bierling from Holochain. Right. And of course, Yuri Cataldo and I from where are we from? The Coin Chat. I forgot where I am.
We're from this place.
Yeah, well, thanks everybody for listening, watching, subscribing. Don't forget to ring that little bell on your way out if you're on YouTube. And don't forget to subscribe to us on Spotify and Apple, or just say, I'd like to listen to the Coin Chat on Amazon Alexa, because we're there too. To the moon. Until next time. Thank you for joining us today on the Coin Chat. Join us on Telegram on t.me/thecoinchat, where we discuss a range of topics on cryptocurrency. And visit us on patreon.com/thecoinchat for show notes, outtakes, and previews of additional content. Or follow us on our website, which is www.thecoinchat.net. And remember to like and subscribe to us on your way out. To the moon. Until next time.